Welcome to Season 4, Episode 6 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak life, encouragement, and truth into the minds and hearts of educators and get you energized for the week ahead. Today, I'm going to share some thoughts on why teacher authors, such as those who sell on Teachers Pay Teachers, don't give everything away for free, and why you shouldn't either. Visit truthforteachers.com to get the transcript, links to recommended resources, and to share your thoughts on the show. This episode is sponsored by Kiddom, a standards-based platform helping teachers personalize learning. With Kiddom, teachers gain access to an unlimited library of content with beautiful, actionable reports. And the best part? Kiddom is free. Visit kiddom.co to learn more. That's kiddom.co. So every now and then I get a comment on one of my books or my printables that I sell on Teachers Pay Teachers or on the 40-Hour Teacher Workweek Club that says something along the lines of this. It's a shame that teachers charge money for everything now. I remember the days when teachers would give everything away for free. Sometimes they even add insult to injury by saying, if you really wanted to help teachers, if you really cared about kids, you wouldn't be charging for this. As if anyone who wants to make a difference is supposed to do it for free, and the only people who deserve to get paid are the people who aren't helping others. Well, sometimes I just ignore the comment, and sometimes I try to educate them and explain myself. But it's something that I wanted to take the time to address here in the podcast for two reasons. First of all, I think there's a lot more people thinking this way than there are those who actually say it. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of my longtime podcast listeners and blog readers have actually thought something along these lines themselves. But they don't want to be rude, so they don't speak up. They're just kind of holding it in. Secondly, I wanted to have a blog post that I could point people to so that I'm not explaining the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to kind of speak my piece on this topic. This is my teacher author manifesto here. And then whenever I'm questioned, I'm just going to share the link to the blog post for this episode and hopefully be able to educate some more people on how I think about the situation. So let's start by examining this idea of the good old days when teachers gave everything away for free. I started teaching in 1999, so I remember those days very well. And I also remember the pitiful quality of the resources that were being given away for free. 10 to 15 years ago, we were mostly creating simple Word document worksheets. No beautiful fonts, no graphics, because we didn't readily have the ability to create images and such back then. I gave away very simple worksheets and forms. And the more interesting things that I was making for my students, like math games and center materials and those sorts of things, they weren't created digitally. So there was no way to share them. I made most of those hands-on classroom materials using markers and pen and paper. And then I took photos of them, and other teachers would look at the photos on my website and then hand draw or hand write their own. Yes, seriously. That doesn't sound like anything I would want to go back to, would you? I mean, the reality is that the resources we used to give away for free bear little to no resemblance to the beautiful, elaborate, comprehensive, ready-to-use resources that teachers are selling today. I'm actually embarrassed by the quality and the appearance of things that I used to give away on my website. That's why I pulled most of them off. The bar for quality has been raised significantly since the days when teachers gave everything away for free. And I'm going to explain how to you next. Some people say, why pay for something that I can make myself? And I just don't think that most people realize how much time and effort goes into turning one's own classroom resources into something that is actually useful and adaptable for other teachers. When I created a form for my own classroom use, I couldn't just upload that to Teachers Pay Teachers and expect it to make sense to other educators. First, I had to create a beautiful cover design that would catch people's attention and explain what the product is. Teachers are way too busy to read through descriptions of thousands of documents online to find the one they need. So a cover page that lets them see what they're getting is really essential. This means I had to look for and I had to purchase attractive fonts, graphics, clip art, photographs, and I had to buy the software and programs and tools beyond Microsoft Word in order to make those covers. And of course, to make the resources themselves so that they would be more modern looking and engaging for students. I then had to take well-lit, attractive photographs of the resources so that teachers could understand how to use them and how to assemble the resources more easily. I also had to create a preview file so that teachers could see what they were getting and not have to download or purchase dozens of different things hoping to find something that would meet their needs. In addition, I had to write out instructions for how to use the resource and create options for adapting and differentiating it for different classroom needs. After all, I didn't just want it to work for my students. If I'm going to share it with other teachers, I wanted it to work for their students too. And then there's the issue of accuracy. If I'd made a typo or a mistake in a resource and then I used it in my own classroom, I'd just tell the kids to mark a correction on their papers and we'd move on. But there was no way I was going to embarrass hundreds of teachers around the world by having them download a resource with mistakes in it. And I was not okay with the idea of exposing thousands of students to resources that weren't error-free. So, before making it available for other teachers, I had to have the resource professionally edited. This is just a fraction of the amount of time and effort and expense that goes into making a resource available for other teachers to download. Something that might only take me a few hours to create for my own classroom use could easily take 30 hours or more and cost between $20 and $150 to prepare for other teachers. Sometimes I go through that whole process and I make the item available for free on my website or Teachers Pay Teachers. But if I've spent dozens or hundreds of hours working on a resource to make it excellent quality, make it truly useful in a wide range of classrooms, I feel totally justified in charging a couple bucks for it. Absolutely. So here's something that you might be thinking as you listen to me explain this. You might be thinking, I hate when something says it's free, but they advertise something for sale at the end of it. So let me explain that too. I had someone comment once that they were annoyed at the end of my webinar when I gave what they felt was a quote infomercial for products. This person said that they had been following my free blog for 10 years. They had signed up to participate in my free book club this summer, and they regularly listened to my free podcast. This person also got 45 minutes of free professional development through the webinar. And yet she was appalled that I had the audacity to explain in detail about the 40-hour teacher workweek club at the end of a training on work-life balance. I suppose it is fair to call what I did at the end of that training an infomercial. An infomercial is a paid product announcement that helps offset the costs of all the other programming that doesn't talk about things for sale. Similarly, there are commercials on radio, TV shows, podcasts, online streaming networks like Hulu. The commercials and the infomercials are what make it possible for you to get the rest of the programming for free or at a very low cost. So here's the thing that this teacher, and I think a lot of others, don't realize. All of those quote-unquote free resources that teachers love aren't really free. Someone is paying for them. Take this podcast, for example. It takes me on average 3 to 5 hours a week to produce a single 15-minute episode. And that's just for the aspects of the program that I do myself. I pay an editor to transcribe and edit the blog post and to help me create images for it. I pay a podcast engineer to adjust the sound and make sure that the audio quality is good. I pay a monthly fee to my podcast host provider to make the audio available indefinitely to everyone on every device at no charge. I pay a huge monthly fee. We're talking 4 figures here a month in web hosting to make the blog post and the transcript available. And I pay hundreds of dollars per month to my email service provider so that I can send out free notifications to any teacher who wants to be notified when there's a new episode or post. So free really means that it's free for you. I absorb the costs associated with this podcast because I want to be able to offer it to teachers and encourage teachers every single week without asking for any sort of compensation. The podcast and the blog are something that I love to produce. In fact, I've been sharing free resources on my website since 2003. The podcast is only the latest in a long line of resources that I create simply to help people because it's something that I feel called to do. Occasionally on the podcast, I'll mention a book or a teaching resource, or an online course that I've created. Or I might insert an affiliate link to a product someplace on Amazon or another website where I get paid a small portion of the purchase price for anyone who chooses to buy. I mention paid products in the podcast only when I have a resource that's relevant to the podcast topic. Something that's designed not only to help offset the costs of running the podcast, but also to provide more value to you as a listener. I actually love when I'm reading or listening to something that has been truly helpful, and the person lets me know where I can purchase a book or some other resource that will give me more in-depth information. I consider that a service, even if it is also self-serving. Everyone benefits, right? And so I hope that when I mention related paid products here in the podcast, you'll choose to see them the same way, as an optional resource that you can purchase if you want more help and support for that particular topic, or something that you can just skip if it's not needed. So those are my thoughts on paid or free products that have paid product advertisements in them. Let's talk about this objection. Some people will say, teachers are paying out of their own pockets. If you really wanted to help them, you wouldn't charge for it. Now, this is the criticism that bothers me the most, because there's an implication that I care more about making money than I do about helping teachers. And there's absolutely nothing going back in my 14-year history of supporting teachers through my website that would indicate that I'm in this just to make a quick buck. I didn't go into teaching for the money, and I certainly did not go into creating resources for teachers just for the money. So I have to make the assumption that this isn't really a personal criticism that's based on my track record over the whole past decade and a half, right? It's probably more of a general implication that people who want to help kids should do so from the goodness of their hearts rather than charging for it. And that's a hard thing for me to understand when the criticism is coming from a teacher, meaning someone else who gets paid to do things that help kids. I mean, sure, classroom teachers go above and beyond what's required of them contractually. They don't get paid for everything they do, but I think I've established that neither do I. But for the bulk of the work that you and I do, for our core hours and our core responsibilities, we are compensated for our time, for our talents, for our expertise. If you don't work for free, why would you expect anyone else to? I've even had people suggest that I make the 40-hour teacher workweek club completely free of charge. Now, no one who is actually a member has ever suggested this because they see the amount of work that I put into it. But I do hear that criticism occasionally, and people don't see the legitimacy of charging teachers to coach them on work-life balance. The 40-hour teacher workweek club is something that I have spent hundreds and hundreds of hours creating. I also have a team of 8 part-time people working for me, plus a full-time web development team to help provide website support, answer emails and questions from members, to moderate the discussions, to help me format the club contents, to prepare the audio. All kinds of things are involved. The club is 52 weeks of professional development, worth 104 continuing education credits. It costs me thousands of dollars every single month to maintain the web hosting, the email provider service, all the other resources for club members. And I offer the club at just over $100. So yeah, I do feel a little insulted at the suggestion that my 8-member team and my web developer and I should all be working for free. And this should somehow be a volunteer effort that we just dedicate hours of our lives to every single week as a hobby. Here's the thing that happens when people volunteer or they work for free. That work always comes second to the paid work because they have bills to pay. Volunteer work and hobbies get scheduled into whatever time a person has left over when their paid work is finished. The work that I do when supporting teachers, it isn't done in my leftover time. It's one of my top priorities in life. It's part of my calling and my purpose, and it's something that I want to continue doing full time. If I were to offer the club or my books or all of my printable teaching resources for free, I wouldn't be able to devote hundreds of hours to those things like I do currently. They would have to be side projects that I work on whenever I have nothing else to do, which is never. And then I'd have to spend the majority of my time focusing on something that would help support my family financially. At that rate, the club materials might have gotten finished by the year 2023, if ever. And the quality and the support would be lacking because I highly doubt I could convince a team of other people to help me with this for free. In order to make something of this magnitude work, people have to be compensated for their time and their energy and their talents. And there's no shame in that. So what about the things that are given away for free? Maybe you're thinking, I do see a lot of free stuff out there. If you can't do it, how come other people are able to do it? So if a teaching resource appears to be given away for free, there's one of three things happening, okay? So number one, maybe the free resource is made by a person who makes things whenever they have time as a hobby. Now, most people don't have time for hobbies and volunteer work because the job that pays their bills has to come first by necessity. So if a person is giving away all their resources for free, you can expect that there will be a limit to the amount of time and energy and resources that they can devote to it. I ran my website as a hobby for 6 years. I didn't make a dime. And most people who do this will eventually get to the same point that I did. They'll realize that there's a lot of easy ways to recoup some of that time and money spent. And once you're making a little bit of profit off of it, you can do a better job and create more and better things to help teachers. It's really unreasonable to expect everyone to create free resources in their spare time after teaching all day, particularly if you yourself aren't giving back to the teaching community by doing the same, right? So a free resource could be made by someone who just does a little bit in their free time as a hobby. Or the free resource might be used to advertise a paid product or get you interested in something that they hope you will eventually buy in order to help offset the costs of making that free thing available. So when this is the case, you'll see paid product mentions embedded in the resource. And if you want to show support to the person who made that free thing and get even more helpful resources from them, you can choose to purchase something. So this is something that you should not view as money grubbing or even just something that is annoying to you. It's part of the price you pay when you're not paying any money. Now, the third way that something might be given away for free is if it's given away because it has a sponsor, which is usually some sort of corporation. So some of the quote unquote free trainings and printables and websites that are available are in fact paid for by organizations or companies. They want to get their name out there. They want to be seen as a supporter of teachers in schools. They want to get a significant tax write-off for their business. There's all kinds of reasons for them to do this. So before you jump to the conclusion that there are free resources with no product promotion in them, remember, teacher authors do not generally have the backing of a multi-million-dollar company who can absorb the costs associated with making that free resource available. So let's talk about this objection. Sometimes someone will say, I don't see any reason to pay a fellow teacher for curriculum resources. I mean, we're not talking about something professionally created. It's not like what I'd buy in a book at a teacher store. Why would I pay a fellow teacher for this? I'm going to tell you a little secret about most of the companies that publish teaching materials. Those resources, they're made by teachers too. But the teachers themselves keep very little of the profit. A teacher author is likely to get paid pennies on the dollar for what the publishing company earns from the sales of their teaching resources. And by the way, this is true for regular books too. Most authors earn less than $1 per copy off of their book every time it's sold, unless they start their own publishing company, as I've done, and they cut out the middleman. Many companies that publish teaching resources don't even pay the authors royalties. They give the teacher a small flat payment right up front, and then the company continues to earn money every time the resource sells for years to come, and the teacher makes nothing. So the teacher, the person who came up with the idea, classroom tested it, wrote about it, created all the resources for it, the teacher ends up earning chump change while the publisher takes all the rest. The teacher gives up control over the title and the cover and even the content to a large degree, and allows the corporation to make the majority of the money. I have friends who have done this, and they actually feel embarrassed about the final product that was published because it's so far removed from what they actually do in their classrooms. So this is one of many reasons why so many educators now are creating their own teaching resource stores and not relying on a big corporation to publish for them. And for that reason, I think you should feel really good about choosing to support a fellow educator directly by purchasing through places like Teachers Pay Teachers. Okay, now here's an objection I don't hear very often, but every now and then someone will look at an article maybe about someone on Teachers Pay Teachers who has made a whole lot of money. We know that there's been a couple people who've made $1 million on there. And people will comment and say, well, after you've made a certain amount of money, shouldn't that be enough? They should just give away all their teaching resources after that. Well, that is a nice idea in theory, right? But that's not how business works. That's not how capitalism or our economy works. And it's not how smart financial planning works. The more money that a business takes in, the more expenses they incur. And they need to reinvest in the business in order to expand product lines and continue to serve their customers better and keep making money in the long term. The money doesn't just all pile up in a bank account that's used for buying yachts, okay? Now, for a teacher author in particular, the money that they make today is not promised. It's not guaranteed. It could all dry up tomorrow for any number of reasons. So, like any smart human being, teacher authors want to make sure that they have saved money for emergencies and health care and retirement and their children's college tuition. There's nothing wrong with continuing to make and save money while you can. In fact, that's the smart thing to do. To cut off a solid income source that's supporting your family, that would be ludicrous and extremely unwise. So that's why people continue to sell their resources even after they've made good money from it. So then we come to this objection. Every now and then people will say this: teachers can't afford to pay for things, and this is all for the good of the children. We should just collaborate. We should share freely. So as far as the affording thing, let me just say right up front, I empathize with how difficult it is to live on a teacher salary. I was in the classroom for 11 years. Even with a master's degree, I never got above $36,000 on the pay scale. So I don't begrudge anyone who feels like they personally cannot afford to buy teaching resources. That's why I continue to make so many materials available for free. I know it's tough on a teaching salary. My problem is with those who feel that they are entitled to being given everything for free simply because they teach children. I refuse to see any teacher as a victim, as someone to be pitied, or a charity case. This whole mentality that teachers can't afford it so everything should be free argument, it's part of a larger victim mentality and an entitlement problem that seems to be pervasive in some circles. It's a complaint. It's not solution-oriented. After all, if everything should be free, then every teacher needs to get on board with making all these free resources available. No one who has complained about me charging for my expertise and time and resources has had a substantial collection of original quality resources that they themselves make available to teachers online at no cost. None of them. And so this is the piece that they're missing. When they say that they want to collaborate, we should be collaborating and sharing freely. Well, true collaboration is a two-way street. By very definition, it's a relationship where both parties are contributing or giving in some way. And if you're annoyed by products for sale and you're just downloading free stuff without contributing to the teaching community in any way, where's the collaboration that you're wanting? Expecting other teachers to continually make everything for you to download without you giving your time or your money or your resources in return is completely incongruent with the true spirit of collaboration. The truth is, many people who say teachers should share freely really mean other teachers should share freely. They want other people to do the work. And they're not going to give back in any way with their time or their money. They're stuck in this martyr mentality where just because they're a teacher, they are doomed to be poor forever and we should pity them, we should give them everything for free. It's a pretty sad way to go through life, in my opinion. I'm not going to enable that. I deserve to be compensated for my talents and my time and my energy. And in fact, I think every teacher does. I am tired of that mentality that just because you care about kids, you have to work yourself to the bone and not be properly compensated for it. We can't change the salary scale in schools, but we can certainly create our own businesses on the side and finally get paid something close to what we're actually worth, right? So in response to this, a criticism sometimes comes that You should just get a job where you're not making money off the backs of teachers. And I've actually had someone actually ask me that before, a Facebook comment. Why don't you get a job where you aren't making money off of teachers? I have a better question. Why is it okay for teachers to work the evening shift at Starbucks or Target, or to sell leggings or makeup for a multi-level marketing company, but creating quality resources for other educators is somehow a skill set not worth paying for? If someone's side business or full-time business improves their teaching practice and benefits kids, we should all be on our feet applauding. Selling resources on TPT is just as valid as all the other jobs that teachers take on. Those who create resources may be doing so in exchange for teachers' money, but they're giving teachers something back that is perhaps even more precious and limited, which is their time. By purchasing ready-to-use resources from other educators, teachers are essentially able to buy back their evenings and their weekends so they can take better care of themselves. Any resources that give teachers more time to spend with the people they love, to me, that's inherently valuable, beyond whatever price they paid, and anyone who sells those resources should be proud to do so. Now I'm going to move into a different misconception. This is kind of like a flip side of the coin here. This is something that I hear sometimes from people who do buy the resources, but think that they've bought something that they really haven't. So some people download these resources and have this attitude where if I paid for it, I own it, and I can do whatever I want to with it. So let me clarify here. Whenever you purchase an ebook on Amazon Kindle, or a curriculum resource from Teachers Pay Teachers, any sort of digital purchase like that, you do not own that book or that resource. You own one license to use that resource. That's a very big difference. Don't miss this. As the author, I alone own the copyright. The resource is still mine. And in exchange for paying me a few dollars, I've given you permission to access the resource for your own personal use. So you have not purchased the ability to share it with every teacher in your grade level. You have not purchased the ability to upload it to a shared Google Drive folder to make available to everyone in your district. And you have not purchased the ability to adapt the resource and then sell your own version of it. You have purchased a single license for personal use only, and that applies to everything you've gotten on Teachers Pay Teachers, unless the terms and conditions say otherwise. Single license, personal use only. Now, sometimes teachers will say, but why can't I share something that I purchased? Why can't I share it with my friends? I don't want to be rude. They see it in my classroom, they like it. I don't want to just tell them, go buy your own copy. Well, I know that sometimes there's peer pressure for teachers to share resources with one another, especially those who were used to the old days of buying teacher resource books and passing them around to the whole faculty to photocopy. However, digital copyright restrictions almost always specify these single user licenses. And if you violate those terms, you are breaking the law. We need to change the norms and the cultural standards around sharing digital teaching resources. Just as it's illegal to download music that you haven't paid for, we need to educate others that it's illegal for them to download teaching resources that they haven't paid for. I know that it's not fun to be the stickler for the rules. I get it. But this is a moral, ethical, and legal issue, and you are obligated to make the right choice, especially as a teacher, as someone who's a role model to young people who are still learning about digital copyright. You might be doing a colleague a favor by illegally sharing a resource from Teachers Pay Teachers, but you've just canceled out all that good karma by stealing from the teacher who created it. Now, the good news is that you can buy additional licenses for your friends very easily and very affordably on Teachers Pay Teachers. Most additional licenses are half price. Some of them are even lower than half price. So if a teacher friend sees something in your classroom and wants it, tell them, I got the license to use it on TPT. So that means I can get you a license at half off. Then you go to My Purchases in your TPT dashboard. And under My Purchases, click on Buy Additional Licenses for whatever resource it is that your coworker wants. That will enable you to add them to your cart at this reduced rate, and you can have your coworkers pay you back. easy, and very ethical. So to sum up everything here, when you hear a fellow teacher lament that everything isn't just shared freely anymore, these are the key points I hope that you will remember. It wasn't really the good old days when teachers shared everything freely because they had no way to earn extra income by creating and selling resources directly to teachers. Their only choice was to create resources for a big publishing company who compensated them at a fraction of what they're really worth. Remember that the quality of the resources that were given away years ago in no way compares to what's being made available for purchase today. Remember that something that seems easy to make yourself probably took dozens of hours to create and required the purchase of fonts, graphics, clip art, and product creation programs and software. Remember that anything that appears to be free is actually coming at a high cost in time or money or both to the person who created it. Remember that a product plug or an infomercial in a free teaching resource is designed to tell you about useful resources that will help you extend what you learned for free. Letting you know about the paid resource that's available is intended to be a service to you, and choosing to purchase it helps offset the costs of making those free things available. Remember that if all resources were given away for free, they'd be created as a hobby whenever people have time to make them. And because teachers have very little free time, there would be a fraction of the resources available, and the quality wouldn't be nearly as good. Remember that true collaboration is a two-way street. It's a relationship in which both parties are contributing or giving in some way. Expecting other teachers to continually make everything for you to download without you giving your time or money or resources in return is incongruent with the spirit of collaboration. Remember that no one should be expected to work or run a business for free. And just because your business helps teachers and kids does not mean it's unethical to require payment for it, as anyone who is paid by their district for classroom teaching should attest to. If someone's side or full-time business improves their teaching practice and benefits kids, we should all be happy about it. Remember that when you pay for a digital teaching resource or an ebook, you do not own the resource. You own a license to access the resource for your own personal use. Out of respect for the hard work of the person who created it, not to mention digital copyright laws, you cannot share the resource with people who did not purchase the license. And remember that just as it's illegal to download music you haven't paid for, we have a collective responsibility to teach others that it's illegal to use and share teaching resources that they haven't paid for, so that we shift the cultural norms in our school. So I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this very lengthy diatribe, which has clearly been a long time coming and has been weighing on my heart for many years. I'm sure that in places it has come off as harsh, but please know that I am incredibly grateful to the teachers who understand where I'm coming from and feel that my talents and my time are worthy of their hard-earned money. I am appreciative of every dollar that teachers spend on my resources. They help keep the free resources going for those who can't or choose not to purchase anything from me. I'm appreciative of those who aren't able to afford any of my paid resources, but still faithfully read my blog and listen to my podcast and help spread the word to their friends about the work that I'm doing. And I'm appreciative of teachers who respect copyright and don't share my paid resources with people who haven't purchased them. I love the work that I do supporting teachers and creating resources for them and their students. To everyone who has offered their support through their time or their money or their word of mouth or just their kind words over these last 14 years, thank you for making it possible for me to do what I love. And I hope that the resources that I create make it easier for you to do what you love too. The takeaway truth that I want you to remember this week is an unknown quote that goes like this: promote what you love instead of bashing what you hate. Let's support our fellow teachers. Thank you for listening and have a fantastic week. You can do this, and remember, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it.